In the glossary of professional wrestling terms, a hope spot is described as a brief offensive flurry by a face before losing momentum back to a heel after already having been dominated for several minutes, designed to tease the crowd into getting excited before using the immediate disappointment of the cutoff to draw additional heat. Now, this is supposed to be used in a wrestling match by a wrestling person, but it's also pretty much WWE's entire business model. Let everybody think something good is going to happen, but then just don't. Just let them sit there and moan about it on Twitter for a few days. They'll get over it, I'm sure. As a result, the stipulation game in the company is enjoying a bit of a credibility crisis. So much so that just to try and claw back some legitimacy, Rey Mysterio had to lose an eye at Extreme Rules just to prove that anything can happen. And by anything can happen, I mean that like the SpongeBob meme. What's that? Don't believe me? Let's see. Yeah, I've got time to make you all feel silly because my name is Adam Cleary and these are 10 major stipulations WWE never followed through with. Number 10, Stone Cold Steve Austin is fired. Judgment Day 1998. In an effort to spice up a dreary heel Undertaker vs Kane main event, WWE positioned Stone Cold Steve Austin as a guest referee under threat of getting the sack. When he failed to register a fall, McMahon followed through, not like that, and Austin was gone from the company forever until literally the next night. Niggling injuries and knocks to the neck were a constant for the Rattlesnake after his injury the prior summer, so the company needed to find unique ways to sell his presence without selling his matches. McMahon gave Austin the big, just let me get geared up for this, "You're fired" speech from the safety of a box behind the Titantron that night, but 24 hours later was forced at what he believed was gunpoint to read a fresh new contract soaked in his own piss. Oh, and apparently Shane had rehired him before the show, so there you go. Number 9, Stone Cold Steve Austin is fired again. Survivor Series 2003. Yeah, he was good at this, but Steve Austin let his guard down a bit at the Survivor Series in 2003 when he supposedly bid a fond farewell to his career in the same place he started. His Survivor Series team had lost to Eric Bischoff's and the troublemaking babyface co-general manager was fired. Except no, we didn't say he couldn't be sheriff, did we? Haha! Weirdly, the aforementioned win or be fired stipulation came about because Austin employed a hit if you're provoked rule that saw most mid-card heels given stunners without any recourse. His return with a plastic badge no less gave him more power with none of the worries he'd had to literally assemble a team to fight for back in November. That and his quad bike got a bit of a pop too. Number 8, at least one title will change hands. In Your House 3. Naked housery this one. Getting increasingly desperate as little to nothing drew any money in 1995, WWE announced that September's In Your House 3 would be headlined by a match that had never happened before and a guarantee they could almost never offer. WWE and Intercontinental Champions Diesel and Shawn Michaels were set to take on Tag Team Champions Owen Hart and Yokozuna. With all titles on the line and a pinfall assured, gold was changing hands live on pay-per-view. Showtime came though, and news broke that Owen Hart wasn't there. President Monsoon, and yes, I forgot to mention that Monsoon was president then, allowed Davey Boy Smith to replace him. But then, for some reason, Hart just arrived during the match to take both a jackknife and the fall. The show went off the air with the babyfaces celebrating becoming the champs with all the straps, but inevitably, this was too good to be true. Monsoon addressed this mess the next night on Raw by returning the belts to the heels, boo, before the Smoking Guns beat them later that night as a make good, and yay, I guess? Number 7, Asuka doesn't cash in her Money in the Bank briefcase. And now for something completely different. The run-up to 2020's Money in the Bank was strange for more than just the sales pitch of wrestlers getting thrown from the top of Titan Towers. A night all about champions was missing arguably the biggest one in the company. Becky Lynch was absent from the marketing for the show and did not defend the Raw Women's Championship she'd held for a record-setting 398 days. But questions over her absence were answered the next night when Asuka came looking for the briefcase she just won. Rather than even getting the chance to cash in as others had, the Empress of Tomorrow was given a greater reward. Lynch revealed that the match had, in fact, been for all the marbles. She was pregnant and had no choice but to surrender the title, which had been secretly locked in the briefcase rather than the golden ticket contract. Nobody in the company deserved it more than Asuka, and Lynch wore the thrilled expression of somebody that knew it. It was a wonderful moment of mutual respect and adulation between the wrestlers, with similar two-sided satisfaction between viewers for what were two of the best performers in the entire company. Regardless though, it robbed us of that cash-in pop, and that's a shame. Number 6, Free or Fired, Survivor Series 2010. Alright, so just to recap here, John Cena was forced to join the Nexus by Wade Barrett as an attempt to rebuild an angle that had taken a big on the rug and died after Cena battered the entire group at SummerSlam. He didn't even trade his garish purple shirt for a big yellow N1, he just looked sad for about a month or so. It all resulted in Barrett installing him as referee for a WWE Championship match against Randy Orton, with a stipulation that saw Cena permitted to leave the group if Wade won the big one, or fired outright if he didn't. If this sounds win-win for Cena, it's because it was. With Barrett losing, Big Match John came out and bid a big farewell on Raw the next night, but spent the following month pummeling every member of the group into submission from his laughable spot as a company outsider. Barrett then rehired him ahead of a chairs match, at the next pay-per-view, which naturally he lost comprehensively. Number 5, Loser Eats Dog Food, SummerSlam 1997. Ah yes, a show as important for the Hart Foundation in kayfabe as it was for WWE in the real world. Amidst a host of other stipulations for the matches featuring Brian Pillman, Owen Hart and the Hitman himself, Davey Boy Smith challenged Ken Shamrock to the most demeaning of all stipulations. Loser Eats Dog Food had been consigned to its grim Memphis past before the British Bulldog put his European title up for grabs against the world's most dangerous man. In the end, neither prestigious championship nor pedigree chum featured. Bulldog rubbed some of the grub in Shamrock's face, earning him a kicking that saw the whole thing thrown out. Ken's snapping disguised the lack of payoff, but WWE wouldn't bother to mask another stipulation they abandoned from the very same show. Incidentally, I was in a pub a few months ago with a couple of friends who were like, "Oh look, wrestling is on TV. That's the thing you cover, Adam. Could you tell us what's going on right now?" And I said, "Yes, certainly. That's Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin, and they're covering each other in dog food, because my job is very serious." Number 4, Jim Neidhart shaves his beard, SummerSlam 1997. A small thing in relative terms, but huge for how well the Hart Foundation and Jim himself would have sold this. The only member of the group willing to donate his beard to the high-stakes SummerSlam 1997 card, should any of them not win their matches. Now, discounting the aforementioned British Bulldog Ken Shamrock non-finish, the Anvil was in trouble thanks to Stone Cold Steve Austin's injury-riddled victory over Owen Hart. Or rather, he wasn't, because he just suddenly wasn't around for that part of the show when he was supposed to shave his beard. According to Bret Hart's book, Neidhart was so constantly on the outs with Vince McMahon at the time that he was simply gone from the show for a while, and a few fans even piped up to ask about his shave being upheld. He was back on television doing run-in duties for the Hitman by September, and nobody ever mentioned the beard again. Until now. Number 3, Retirement, WrestleMania 7. Now, yes, you're right, retirement almost never sticks in pro wrestling, but back in 1991 on the road to WrestleMania 7, the then WWF was not big enough for both Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior. The Macho King wrapped his scepter around the mullet of the Warrior at the Royal Rumble to cost him and America the WWE Championship, and Warrior was out for revenge. It was beautiful stuff. Savage lost his Queen Sensational Sherry the second he lost the match, saved only by the love of a returning Miss Elizabeth. Their reconciliation was the perfect out for the storyline before Savage had even left the ring. Marriage was imminent, but so too was his return after Jake Roberts crashed the party with his King Cobra. Now, yeah, alright, this is expert booking as much as it was a cheeky use of such a grand stipulation, but Randy's re-entrance was baked in to his grand farewell. Number 2, Vince McMahon can no longer appear on WWF television. Fully Loaded 1999. The increasingly convoluted Stone Cold Steve Austin vs Vince McMahon feud finally met its end in July 1999 when the Rattlesnake defeated The Undertaker in a First Blood WWF Championship match. Subtitled The End of an Era due to the major ramifications. If Austin lost, he'd never get another title shot. If Undertaker took the fall, McMahon was gone for good, for real, no, definitely this time. When the match went the way of the babyface, Vince was finished. forever. They weren't ever gonna go back on this one, no sir, no takesy-backsies. Except, yes sir, takesy-backsies, because Austin himself undid it all less than 2 months later. In some hotshot booking on an early episode of SmackDown in September 99, a now babyface McMahon was teased into a WWF Championship match with Triple H, which he won before vacating the belt and just getting on with it like nothing had happened. Number 1, The Lockbox, WrestleMania 32. Yes, The Lockbox, weeks of dialogue about that f***ing lockbox. A match that made no sense on paper or in practice and a money-drawing comeback, and what was it all for? Shane McMahon jumping off a really high thing for the first time in nearly 10 years. Yep, Shane O'Mac's shock return in February moved a not inconsiderable number of additional tickets for WrestleMania 32 a few months later. Shane wanted to wrestle both the show and this amazing lockbox of secrets from Vince, so Dad sent the dead man into battle on his behalf for reasons never even remotely explained. Now the prodigal son lost, which ensured that the lockbox stayed locked and Vince kept hold of the red brand, until he ushered in a new era by just letting him have a go anyway. But in case you're worried the story didn't make sense, just remember Shane McMahon jumped off a really high thing for the first time in nearly 10 years, and that's all you're supposed to remember. So there you have it, those are 10 wrestling stipulations WWE never followed through with, read to you by a man who did say he would dye his hair blonde for a bet that time, and well, we all remember how that went. Let me know what you made of it all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I have of course been Adam Cleary, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.